Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You Exchange, the podcast where I exchange my user experiences to change them, and yours for the better. I'm Jeremy, a mentor and senior user researcher with over 8 years of experience and a background in neuroscience. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of engaging with hundreds of users around the world, spanning across Europe, the USA, Africa, and India. This has allowed me to deliver actionable insights that have improved user experiences with nutrition, automotive, delivery, and e-commerce sectors. I've created this podcast with the aim of providing my mentorship and educational content, offering actionable tips, knowledge, and guidance in the realm of research, specifically focusing on UX research to anyone having an interest in this area. And I hope that you will find this episode insightful. Hello world, hello UX folks, and hello friends. Today I'm gonna speak about a personal experience of mine that I had recently and from which I think I learned quite a bit. I wanted to share that in a different format. It will be not scripted, and so I'm sorry in advance if I stumble. The idea here is to share my experience and my learnings, and hopefully it will help at least some of you in getting more confident addressing uncertainty. So, let me deep dive directly. What happened recently is I entered a project for which I had no domain expertise, no knowledge. So, for those who don't know, I'm a user experience researcher, meaning on a day-to-day basis, I ask questions to people using technology, products, and services to see what they need, what they expect, what is going wrong with them, and how can we best solve their problems. Once I identify the main pain points, needs, expectations, mental models, I communicate with designers, product managers, and sometimes developers for us to craft the best possible solution. And so, as you might understand and imagine, this requires sometimes to know a little bit the product your users are using. If you want to ask the most relevant questions, it's better for you to know about this product. So, what happened is I joined the project and I didn't know so much about this product. So what happened is at the beginning, I felt a little bit scared and I thought I need to kind of upskill and kind of teach myself this product. The problem is the information was scarce. It was all over the place. Different people had different sources of information and time was running. We didn't have time for me to learn everything. On top of that, I joined a project in the middle of the user research, meaning it was already being prepared. So, as I already explained, I had no time and learning about the product was going to be a luxury. I'm thinking this is happening in user research, but probably not only in user research, as I'm sure in other areas. Probably you're an architect and tomorrow you jump in a project and you don't know everything that would be helpful for you to know before embarking on this project. Or let's say you're a project manager, and it's the same. You don't have all the elements in your possession. So my first learning is that we are never 100% prepared. It will never happen. Even if you're given months to study a topic, when you deep dive and when you launch your project and your study, you will never be 100% prepared. So, my first learning was that it's not compulsory to know everything, and probably this will play against you. The more you want to learn about something, before doing anything, the more you will freeze. So this is not called analysis paralysis for without any reason. So we call that because it refers to the fact that the more you know about something, the more you want to know and the less you're going to act. At least I feel this applies to me pretty much. I'm kind of an analytics oriented person. I like to analyze things and I might take some time to act. And so I need to think a lot before acting and balance options in order for me to reduce uncertainty as much as possible. Probably that's why I ended up as user researcher, because I feel it can be costly to take a decision when it comes, for instance, to innovation and creating a product. And so that's why I think it's also important to identify insights, talk to users, identify the problem, make sure we are addressing the right problem. And this is 95%. For those who listen to the podcasts, you already heard me several times saying this is 95% of the solution, identifying the right problem. You can make an amazing product, but if you're solving no problem, well, it's a flop. It will be a fail. And so this is also something that is ever present in my personality. Everything I do, I tend to overanalyze, overthink, and then this is difficult for me to act, basically. And so you can imagine how when I jump on this kind of project, for me, it's particularly tricky. And the thing is, it was a luxury to learn more, and so I needed to move forward. I needed to take action. So imagine you jump in the project and you have 1 week to craft a script. So basically it's an interview script. And you know you're going to need to interview customers, but you don't know so much about the product. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my professional life, career, because I discovered so much, not only about the product, but also about myself. I discovered we can always make ourselves ready. There are multiple things at play here, of course. So one of the things I discovered is that it's crucial to manage expectations. So if you work with project managers, or even if you interact with your manager on this topic, you should, by the way, just manage expectations and say, look, I will need some time to ramp up and to gain some knowledge on the topic. For instance, in my case with the product managers, that's exactly what I said. And actually, I felt it was a great experience for us to create some bonds because I knew I would be dependent on the product manager to give some help, answer my questions, and so on and so forth. And so, actually, I think it fostered collaboration and discussion and interaction. So, in my opinion, that was a great learning. Then, my second learning is that you can do with the pieces you have. So, whatever you do tomorrow, whatever thing you will start, that's why we always learn. We always hear. It's good to read. It's good to hear things. It's good to see and watch videos, but it's nothing compared to taking action. If you take action, you will know what you're missing as information. You will know directly. So you are the user of your own, let's say, learning process. Your learning process is a product and you're your own user, and you need to manage uncertainty and you need to take paths according to what you need in the future. This is really tricky. It's like the chicken and egg problem. But in my opinion, these were the experiences in which I learned the most because I crafted my own roadmap to learn any topic this way. And it was super relevant. It was super personalized for me. So for instance, I learned coding, but I didn't learn coding by following a training. And I'm not an expert at coding. I learned maybe 10% or 5% of what's out there regarding coding. But I, for instance, made a part of a website with some friends around 7 years ago. And so that's amazing because I knew what was the end goal. So I knew what I needed to do. And this reduces tremendously the time it takes for you to learn something and the time it takes for you to take action. When you have a goal in mind, you will not be, purposeless. You will be outcome-oriented and outcome-driven. And so this way you will look for information exactly for what you need. So this is why I tell every time my mentees, I can be your mentor, and it would be great. You need that, absolutely. But for me, there are 3 pillars. There is theory. You need to gain some theory knowledge, of course. I'm not saying the opposite. There is mentorship, because it will provide you guidance for if you lose, let's say, direction, lose track. It's good to have someone. Imagine, it's like if you go outside of the road and you have some safety measure on the side of the road to help you come back to the center of the road, basically. So this is the analogy of a mentor. The mentor should be there for that and guidance, but absolutely not to constrain your thinking. Absolutely not. You need to do the work because this is the only way you will learn. And so for me, this is theory, mentorship, and action. And you are the designer of your learning path, basically. So this is what I learned through this. And so the fact to have a goal and the fact to have time pressure, and yes, sometimes to have a time pressure that is shorter than what you would define if you were the only one defining the timeline. So basically, if I would have been the only one, I would have said, now that I entered the project, let's take probably 3 weeks for me to understand the product and for me to craft a script. But no, we didn't have 3 weeks. And so be prepared because this will happen. So in my opinion, this is something that has to do with internal, let's say, work we need to do on ourselves, we need to make on ourselves, and managing uncertainty and be at ease with this. And it's an ever-going, let's say, work we have to do. Like, it's not because I did it once that tomorrow it will not be difficult to do it again in another project. It will still be difficult, but we need to embrace uncertainty and we need to embrace the difficulty because this is the only way we can grow. So, for instance, in this case, I learned a lot, and I'm gonna share with you what I learned when it comes to user research. This is an application. These are learnings focused on user research, but you can apply this hopefully to any field. So tomorrow, if you're gonna interview someone as a journalist and you're not prepared enough, probably, and you have no time to prepare, probably you need to come up with a set of techniques in the time you have to manage this uncertainty. That's my point of view. I'm happy to be challenged, and if you think otherwise, please let me know in the comments, because probably what I'm about to share applies differently to different disciplines. But in my case, and this is what I discovered for user research. I mean, I knew that, but I never applied it. So, what is it? I had only 1 week to craft a script for a product I didn't know. And we needed to identify pain points, the usual. So, what I did is think, look, you have 10 years experience in research. You did countless interviews, unmoderated research, tests, usability, user tests, and so on. If right now you have nothing, only a sheet of paper, only, a notebook, what will you ask these people? If you are given the topic of the project, the topic of the product more or less, and you have 1 week. And then I thought, well, let's come back to the fundamentals. What is user research? What is user experience and what is user research? And again, I encourage you to make the same, let's say, exercise when it comes to your discipline. So if you're an interior designer, apply this to you. If you're a painter, apply this, whatever. And let me know in the comments if this doesn't work for you and how it should be declined, let's say. So in my case, I thought, what is user experience? User experience has to do with everything a users or a user thinks, feels, experience before, during, or after interacting with a product, service, or system. This is it. This is more or less the definition. It might not be exactly word to word the best definition, but it's mine. And this is how I conceptualize it. And so, what is the goal of user research? The goal of user research is to come up with insights that will inform next product decisions so that we make them less risky and we reduce uncertainty. That's the goal of user research. It's to come up with insights about our users, learnings, what have we discovered, what do we know so far, and what can we do from there. And so I thought, okay, but let's define that in a simpler way, probably, because this is not helping me. So, if you should explain what you are doing to your mother, to your father, or anyone that is not in the field, I'm saying that because my parents are not in the field. What would you tell them? So, what I used to tell them is, my work has to do with making people's lives easier. That's it. Making people's lives easier. I know it's super broad, and I don't have any problem with it being broad, because this is the case. And sometimes it's good to have a broad definition. So it's true, it can apply to everything, making people's lives easier. Tomorrow, if you build a bridge, it's probably to make people's lives easier. If you're a doctor, it's to make people's lives less painful. Okay, but still, this is my standard. It's like I want to make people, and maybe more specifically users' lives easier. So meaning, you use a television, tomorrow it should be easier to you. And not only easier, I know, user experience is not about only ease of use, it's also about emotions, cognition, experience, and the like. I know. But I wanted to, for me, easier encompasses all of that in my definition. So it was like making people's lives and users' lives more enjoyable. It's basically that. And then you decompose this sentence to think, okay, what does it mean make? What does it mean users? And what does it mean more enjoyable and lives? What does that mean? And if we decompose the words, it's actually pretty easy. So let's start with life. Life, everyday life, everyone has a different life, of course. We have habits, we have behaviors, we talk, we interact with people, we do things, we think about things, we are frustrated by things. We wish things were different. When we use something, there is friction. We are annoyed, and the like. So, we can already understand with what I'm saying that in lives, there are these dimensions, which are like the thoughts, the behaviors, the emotions, and the words, let's say, what people say, the speech, for lack of a better term. So these are more or less the four components, I would say. Then, what does it mean more enjoyable? Well, then this you can decompose. So it can be, okay, less difficult to use. Probably. Probably more satisfactory. Probably. More in line with what you think, how you think it should work. Probably. All of that. And what does it mean make? Make people's lives more enjoyable. In make, it means having ideas, creating something, and delivering this thing to the person, to the user. And so behind this term, there are, of course, a lot of other ideas, but at least my way of thinking about this was, okay, once we know what you do in your life, and once we know the standards to make it more enjoyable, so these are the two other terms in my sentence, what should we do about this? And so this is what is behind the word make. What would be a good idea? What would be something that you would purchase? For instance, it can be this question. What would be something you would use? What do you expect will happen inside of this interface, UI, tomorrow? All of these are valid questions. And so, to be really honest, when I thought this way, I thought, this is not going to be the best script ever because I might lack context. However, we are still going to learn things about our users. So, this is, for me, a kind of framework that I use in user experience research, and probably hopefully you can use it too, with some degree of uncertainty and risk, depending in your profession, in your discipline, what you're allowed to take as risk, of course. But for me, it was a safe bet, and it was a safe set of variables I could use for me to identify and to come up with insights, to identify what are users' pain points and so on. So, for instance, the main dimensions I measured and with which I was very happy were, concretely speaking, imagine I sit down with the user and I think about all these variables I told you. People's lives, okay. So now let's talk about your experience when it comes to e-commerce. When and how do you make purchases online? Tell me about it. Tell me the first step you take. Oh, interesting. What do you do then? And last, what do you do? And when you do that, can you share your screen? Is it possible for you to show me how this works? Oh, why did you click here? So here we are talking about the lives. And of course, this encompasses many, many methodologies. So here, as an example of good methodology to apply this would be ethnography. You go to people's homes and you ask them questions and you observe them. Or you can be sitting on the sofa and you observe them going on with their lives. I also participated in an amazing experience research back then when I was a student in an experimental restaurant. Can you imagine? So there is a restaurant and it's modular. You can shape it with whatever aspect you want, basically. It can be a cafeteria, it can be a fancy restaurant, it can be, imagine, a street food restaurant, whatever. And so this was one of the best experiences I had in terms of being immersed into people's lives, because the context plays so much, so much. If I ask you tomorrow, what do you think about this dress? But I'm not asking you in the context of you purchasing the dress, this can change everything. So I'm going a bit sideways here, but this is just to let you know, of course, these questions, just think about also what are the best methodologies that come with that. And this also applies in other disciplines. You might think about the standards and the pillars of your discipline, but also think, how can you apply these on a day-to-day basis, basically, or what would be the best methodology to use using these criteria and these variables you came up with. That was the thing. So basically, okay, now that you showed me the process to go on with purchasing a laptop online, let's say, what do you think about this process? And how do you feel about this process? Let me know. Okay, and then you can deep dive. Regarding what you shared with me, what would you say is the most painful part? And here you have the pain point. That's it. What do you do about this? What is your current solution behavior? And what do you think about this solution? Let's say, okay, I'm purchasing a laptop and my main pain point, let's say, is that the coupon promotional code is not visible. I don't know how to apply this. What do you do about that? Oh, okay, so I go back to the homepage and I try to search for it. Or I use Control F or Command F on a Mac to search for promotion or coupon. This can be a behavior someone can have. I mean, I just made that up. I'm sorry for the bad example. But this is the idea. Come back to the fundamentals and think about the fundamentals of your discipline. And so once you have that, you can also come up with the other parts. So here I told you some examples related to, let's say, lives of your users and your participants. But then enjoyable. How can we make users' lives more enjoyable? Okay, what is enjoyable? Okay, now that we are in this e-commerce website, what do you think? How would you qualify this website? Oh, it's kind of boring. Okay, what makes it boring? This kind of questions about the product and what do people think about the product will help you know how far you are from your target. So that's why I like to tell my mentees there are several kinds of questions, of course, but you can ask questions about the user and about the product. And I know we should be focused on users. It's user-centered design for a reason. It's called this way because we design products to help users, ultimately. But in this process, we should not lose track of the product itself and how it's perceived. So there are several levels, hierarchical levels. So how do you qualify this product? Is it easy to use? Is it boring? Is it frustrating and so on? Okay, now that we know that, how does that make you feel? And here I want to make the focus on you. And so that's why we are borrowing a lot of techniques from psychology and neuroscience, because we also ask people about what they think. So now that we qualify the product, we know how far we are from our target. Do you think it's easy to use? Do you think it's... Well, this is a biased question, sorry, but you get the ideas. What do you think about this page? Why? What makes it feel... What makes it introduce qualifier? And once you identify that, imagine the product, the user, and in the user there are several things. Behavior, pain point, thoughts, feelings, expectations, mental models, and so on. You can then ask, sorry, I said it, by the way, but you can then ask about ideal. What would be tomorrow's expectations from the user about the product? Because you know what are their current lives. You know what do they think about the product. Is it really helping them or not? Okay, and what is let's say a realistic target, or what do they imagine about how could it be in the future? And even if it's not realistic, it's not a problem, by the way. You can ask them to shoot for the moon and to tell you what would be their ideal experience and best wishes about the product. It doesn't matter. It gives you some sense of direction. Back then, when I was working in automotive, I remember discovering about the concept cars. Well, I knew about this before, but then I understood it better. I mean, from outside, a lot of people knew that already, but I guess I never wondered, why do people make concept cars if we know that it's not feasible in the near future, it's not scalable? And then I understood that it's for several reasons. It's for us to, let's say, show customers what could be feasible in the future. It's also a way for us to gather feedback from customers about what they think and to adjust if necessary. So there are multiple reasons for that. So concept cars are a good example of that. So for instance, I remember about this concept car that would expand on the road. So basically, it has a given length, and while you're driving, it can expand. It can grow. So I was like, this is probably not scalable, but it doesn't matter because it shows your customers what is feasible and what could be happening in the future, and then you can gather some feedback. Okay, would they want that or not? And if not, why? And if yes, why? And so that would be basically the pillars that I used as user researcher. And to be honest, I didn't know everything about the product, but I had an amazing collaboration with a product manager, and I learned so much. And sometimes, by the way, it's also a good thing to not be expert about something, because you ask questions in another way. And this applies, I'm sure, to many fields. If you're a new joiner at an architectural firm, tomorrow you arrive, you can challenge the status quo more easily than if you're there for like 25 years. Because you have fresh eyes, you come from other backgrounds. So that is what I wanted to tell you today about my experience about managing uncertainty. This is one example that I can share, but there are many other ways to manage uncertainty. Tomorrow, I don't know, you're without a manager, or tomorrow you need to move country to make a project, and you don't know about the culture. There are many ways to manage uncertainty. I just wanted to share today one way that I had to manage uncertainty recently, how it affected me, and what do I think about this. And I hope you learned at least one thing. As always, if this is the case, please subscribe, leave a review, comment, and share with your friends. And until then, take care. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you everyone for joining me today on New Exchange. I hope you found today's episode insightful and valuable. Make sure to subscribe in order for you not to miss the next episode. Share it if you liked it, and leave a review. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future topics, feel free to reach out directly to me. You can find all the details in the show notes. And see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.